The very first Metroid game was released in 1986 on the Nintendo Entertainment System. It was a unique sci-fi game that blended the platforming of a Mario Bros. Game with the exploration of The Legend of Zelda. The lead character of this franchise is the bounty hunter Samus Aran of the Galactic Federation, and she defends the galaxy against the space pirates, whose goal is to harness the power of the lethal creatures known as the Metroids. Metroids are essentially big, monstrous hovering leeches who suck the life out of their victims, and historically and continually, Samus's only way of escaping a Metroid's grasp is to enter Morph Ball mode and then lay a bomb to disorient the Metroid. The main villain of the series is known as Mother Brain, and she controls the space pirates on the planet Zebes. She famously appeared in the original Metroid, in Metroid Zero Mission for the Game Boy Advance, and once again in Super Metroid, which was released on the Super Nintendo in 1994. Usually, Mother Brain is contained in a glass tube, which Samus needs to break in order to inflict damage upon Mother Brain. Traditionally, after the defeat of Mother Brain, Metroid games end with an escape sequence, where Samus only has a small amount of time to evacuate the premises before detonation. At the end of this escape sequence in the NES game, this was where it was first revealed that Samus was actually a woman, which came as a surprise to many gamers at the time. The original Metroid game in 1986 took huge influence from the 1979 movie Alien, from the badass female protagonist to the eerie and isolated feel of its universe. Even one of the major villains of the series got its influence from the Alien franchise, as the space pirate dragon Ridley got his name from the original Alien movie's director, Ridley Scott. Now there are other games within the Metroid franchise where you can play as Samus Aran, like the Prime series for example, which features the adventures of Samus in first-person 3D viewing. But technically, these are not a part of the same series, even though they're part of the same canon storyline of the Metroid universe. The Metroid Prime series is essentially a spin-off of the main Metroid 2D series. The core Metroid storyline in chronological order is the NES Metroid, then Metroid 2 Return of Samus on the Game Boy, then Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo, then Metroid Fusion on the Game Boy Advance, and then finally Metroid Dread on the Nintendo Switch, which also makes it Metroid 5. What's interesting is that Metroid Dread will apparently be the final chapter of the Metroid saga that began in 1986, which means it's a storyline that spanned over the course of 35 years. Kinda makes you wonder if future titles involving Samus will still be called Metroid, or if they'll just start naming them after Samus or something like that. It starts off with a Metroid species being discovered by researchers of the Galactic Federation on planet SR-388. Space pirates, who are one of the constant major villains throughout the series, attack the researchers' ship and steal the Metroids for their own research and to utilize them in their lust for power. After plenty of conflict, the Federation decides to send its best bounty hunter to the pirate space on planet Zebes in an attempt to destroy the Mother Brain, who is the life form and controller of the space pirates. This becomes an ongoing series of battles that includes all kinds of different story elements. As far as Samus's perspective on all of this entire war is quite personal for her, as her parents were killed by the space pirates when she was just a child, and she was then raised by the intelligent species, the Chozo, on planet Zebes. This is how she gained much of her skill and intelligence, by growing up with the Chozo race. Between the original Metroid and Metroid 2, The Return of Samus, is where the entire Metroid Prime storyline takes place. So you could see Metroid Prime as a spin-off series, or you could consider all of the Prime games as Metroid 1.5. Metroid 4 is actually Metroid Fusion, which was released on the Game Boy Advance in 2002. This one is rich in content and has a complex story. In Metroid Fusion, Samus returns to planet SR-388 as she escorts a team of researchers to the planet where Metroids were initially discovered. What could possibly go wrong this time? Well, on the planet, Samus and the team of researchers are attacked by an unknown creature that Samus quickly eliminates, but unfortunately, some sort of remnant of the creature then latches onto Samus and infects her. This becomes known as the X-Parasite, and it quickly and dangerously starts corrupting Samus. At the Federation's headquarters, Samus is being tended to by the medical team, when they discover that the cure is actually Metroid cells, and they use it in the form of an anti-X vaccine. when given the vaccine, it eliminated the X parasite from her body, but it also infused her DNA with Metroid DNA, hence why the game is called Metroid Fusion, and also why Samus has a familiar appearance in Metroid Dread. Now a spoiler warning for Metroid Fusion, but at the end of the game, Samus realizes that the Federation has been secretly working on breeding Metroids with the intent of harnessing their DNA capabilities. Samus disagrees with this decision and decides to go rogue against the Federation's actions. She instead activates the ship's self-destruct procedure and escapes in time for her own safety. But in Samus's rebellion, she destroyed the planet SR-388, which as a result, completely eradicates the X-parasites and all of the Metroids in existence. Or at least that's presumed to be the case, as Samus is now in serious trouble with the Galactic Federation, but at least no Metroid or X-parasite threats seem to be imminent. Lastly, I'll cover the unique feel and the structure of the game. The Metroid series loves the aspect of mystery and curiosity, and there will be plenty of instances where the game will hint at something, but it won't let you engage with that something until you get a specific item, an enhancement, or complete some kind of task. But there will also be plenty of backtracking, as you'll need to pay attention to where you've been, where you're going, and where you'll need to return to down the road. You'll also notice how your abilities are extremely limited at the beginning of the game. I know this aspect is true of just about every video game, but Metroid takes it to an extreme, as you'll be consistently acquiring items throughout your journey that allows Samus to become the powerful force that she was meant to be. For example, in almost every installment, you'll have to acquire stuff like the Morph Ball, the missiles, and the Charge Beam, regardless of the fact that Samus already had those features at the end of the previous game. Essentially, the Metroid experience is a bit of a slow build-up, so some gamers may need to be patient as the level of interest and excitement progressively climbs as the game continues. In my opinion, Metroid is one of the most underrated franchises of video game history, and it's great to see how it's finally beginning to stir up the level of excitement that it deserves.